Hello, you guys, and welcome to the next episode of Body Talks Live. By the way, we missed our episode on Monday because if you didn't notice, Instagram was down. So, my dear friend Melissa will be coming on at a later date. She's amazing. So, we're not going to skip that one. We are just rescheduling. But I am so excited for today's episode. Also, I am all pumped up because I'm in Chicago. You'll see I am not in my normal surroundings. I'm in my comfy clothes now in my hotel room, but I spent the day at an amazing retreat called Women Starting Movements. And we actually met in what used to be Oprah's boardroom. So I spent the day bathing in Oprah energy. And it was pretty magical, I gotta say. So, yeah, I'm super excited to be back for another episode. As I've shared before, this Body Talks is inspired by my book, which is out right now. It's coming out officially in less than 2 weeks. So please get those pre-orders in if you want to support the book. It means so much to me. But my book, Someone I Love Lives Here, coming out on October 19th, is all about my story with struggling with body image and disordered eating and, kind of my life's journey with that. But unfortunately, I know so many women go through very similar journeys, very similar struggles, and really struggle to love themselves and come from a place of love and respect for their body as well when we get so many messages telling us not to. So that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Ashli. We actually met when we were both in the fitness industry. So I'm really excited for this conversation. I'm actually really curious about some of her story as well. So, and she is just a total queen of self-love. So yeah, I'm so excited. So to tell you guys a little bit about Ashli before I bring her on here, she is a mother and wife. She lives in Orange County, New York. And 4 years ago, she created a lifestyle platform and blog where she shares her love of home decor, fashion, and beauty tips with other women. But with her life experiences and passion for promoting self-love, she transformed her platform into so much more than a blog. She uses her platform to encourage self-love and promote self-growth. And 14 years in the fitness industry and a lot of life lessons have given her a deep-rooted love for helping others improve their mental and physical well-being. Ashli is also the author of Lifestyle by You, a 30-day workbook to cultivating self-love. And this is a workbook that includes 30 days of journal prompts to help you discover more about who you are and how to evolve into the person you want to be. And I wish I had it with me by my side because I do have a copy, but I'm in a hotel room, so I don't have it with me, but it is amazing. And I just found out as we were chatting, she also just started a podcast. So super exciting and on here. And we are going to dive into all the things. So we'll just get this perfect. All right.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I am so excited for this conversation. As we were just chatting a little before this, I'm really curious too about pieces of your journey that I don't know a lot about. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I'm really honored that you asked me to be a part of this whole Body Talk series. And I'm just so excited how life has come full circle for us. And I think it's just so cool.
Yeah, totally. I was actually thinking back, just in the past day, I was thinking back to when we first met. And I don't know if you remember this, but I'm pretty sure, I think it was like Poughkeepsie or somewhere north in New York. And I was working the metrics table at a show and you won the show. Is this ringing bells?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I always remember that. You looked amazing, of course. But actually, if you don't mind starting there, I'm really curious about, since we met when we were both competing and doing all the things really deep into the fitness industry, and competing, you guys, is kind of a wild experience. So I wanted to kind of start there and just hear about what that was like for you. Because I always say, I don't like to make blanket statements or generalizations about competing is unhealthy for everyone, but for a lot of people it definitely can be. It's again a very interesting little niche industry, so I'd love to hear a little bit more about what that was like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so competing is competing outside of bodybuilding is kind of like second nature for me. I'm very competitive. I love a good challenge. Like I'm up to it, right? So for me, when I got introduced to bodybuilding and competing, I had just started really getting into fitness. Like my parents have always been into it. My dad actually competed for years. And so this was my mom's first show that she had done. She asked me to do it. I had done like a small OCB show before that one that was in Poughkeepsie. And so, you know, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it with you. Whatever. No big deal. This is going to be great because I'm competitive and I wanted it to be like this fun, competitive thing. Really, for me, it was that, and it was exciting. And, you know, I like to say that too. Like, listen, there's nothing wrong with bodybuilding and competing. And I always love to tell people that, like, if it's part of your journey, that's okay. But for me and where I was in my life, I think I was a little bit in denial about my body dysmorphia and my image prior to competing. And this just kind of escalated that for me. So after that show that you're referring to in Poughkeepsie, I had just come back from Vegas. I was in Vegas right before that competing for Flex Magazine bikini model competition, and I placed fifth, and it was like so exciting, like such a high. It was like so cool. I come home, I win the Poughkeepsie show, and then it was like the crash, right? Because there's always that crash after competing. And I really hit like a low, to be honest. I was in a place of like, I never felt like I could get lean enough, skinny enough. I was constantly like, honestly, fearing food. For a long time, like literally I was like, okay, I can only eat chicken and broccoli, tilapia with the nasty jelly on top because it was in my car. Like, oh my God, like the stuff I did. So yeah, like competing was, I will never take it back, right? Like, I'm so glad that I did it. It was really such a great part of my life. And for me, it was a point where I was like, okay, you have to get control of your body image and how you feel about yourself and the way you love yourself, because it's not going to get any better from here. And so I actually, when I retired from competing, it was because right after that show, I was told that I was still like basically too fat to go on to pros. And I was like, I'm fat? Like, what? Like crazy. So that's why I retired from competing, because I was like, this is not good for my mental well-being. So
Yeah. So that was it for you after that show. That's when you stepped away.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I stepped away from the whole, I didn't stop working out and, you know,
Yeah.
being like in a healthy lifestyle and all that. I definitely stopped. Just the whole competing culture was not going to be good for me if I continued.
Yeah. Well, for one, I'm now going to have nightmares about tilapia jelly. Oh my God. For one show, I was eating that for breakfast. Like I was eating that for every meal. And I'm like, oh, like I just, and then that's what I always share with people. I'm like, again, I'm not saying it's unhealthy. And again, like, I feel the same way. I'm like, you know, my journey is what made me who I am today and got me to where I am. So I'm very grateful. But one thing that's really trippy about it is, for one, you know, you do a show and you do all these things to look like that on one day and like to peak. And some people get so down to like the hour and everything. But the
Yeah.
thing is, 2 days later, 3 days later, a week later, your body looks different naturally. Like, you know, and there's usually that, you know, a lot of water weight up front too. So it just starts to really like play tricks on your mind, because you can't, no one can look like that year round. Like it's unrealistic. So like, managing those expectations, if you're not in a super solid place with your body image, I think is really difficult.
Yeah, I would agree. Absolutely. I think that people, they get into it and they don't like, I used to have people come to me like, can you coach me? Like after I retired, and I was like, I'm gonna be completely honest, no, because I just don't want to be a part of that whole thing. Like I want to teach you how to eat, to just like live your best life and be happy and not eat out of containers. Like I used to eat out of my car, containers. Like I was the girl who brought containers to restaurants.
Yeah.
Who could live like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, good for you again for realizing that and recognizing it and like stepping away. And then also, like, same for me, it took a few years, but eventually I was like, I was even judging shows, and you know, it was a very different culture when I moved home to Wisconsin, like the culture here with the shows. But at a certain point I was just like, this is not, like, it's not aligned with where I want to go. And
Yeah.
so I really respect that you saw that early on and stepped away. And yeah, like you shared too, it's also, you know, you are putting yourself up on stage to get judged. And I think even at a pro level, it's like there's always feedback. So that is really trippy too, because you've never looked better. You're in fantastic shape, best shape of your life, so freaking lean. And then you have someone tell you like what areas you need to improve or like what you need to improve on. So
Yeah.
yeah, that can be really, really rough. Again, unless you have like rock solid body confidence. And that's where I want to go next. I know you mentioned that helped you kind of get a handle on body dysmorphia and some issues. So I'm curious, in the timeline of your life where that first started, or like your earliest memory that you can remember, being conscious of your body or how you're supposed to look or food or anything like that, if you can remember way back.
Yeah, actually, so I I can't remember like the age that I was, but from a very young age. And my mom and I most recently had like a really strong turning point in our relationship because it stemmed with my mom's body image that she got from her mom. So that whole generational chain. So she didn't know any better. So she was doing what she was raised, you know, how she was raised and how she was critiqued by my grandmother. So she critiqued herself. And then as a young girl, I watched her critique herself. And it's kind of like I just thought that was the way, you know what I mean? I picked myself apart because I saw her doing it, type of thing. And then I've always had an athletic build. And I can remember like people always commenting on my legs, which now I'm like, I love these legs. Like these quads are awesome. But I remember being young and people being like, oh, your quads are so big or your legs are so big and muscular. And like that, I used to have like this, you know, that body image of like, oh my God, my legs are too big. I got to lean them out. Or, you know, my stomach, like I always was self-conscious about my stomach, like this small little area of my belly. Like, you know, it's all I ever thought about. You know, one of my best friends, she can tell you to this day, like in high school, I used to put on like remember the electric pulse, the ab machine that came out on like, I don't know, it was on like a infomercial. I would like walk around with that. And it's like really sad to think like this was me in high school thinking like then that my body wasn't good enough. And when I look back, like it was great. Like it's always been great. But really it stemmed from early childhood. And, you know, that was from, I learned it. It's what I saw. So it's also why for me now, I'm very adamant about breaking that whole generational chain. For my daughter, I mean, I'm just in a great place, obviously, but I don't ever speak badly about myself in front of her. I don't say things like, oh, I look, you know, terrible today, or I feel gross or whatever. I never want her to hear those things because it is a learned thing. I want her to learn like self-love and, you know, building confidence, and like it's okay to be uncomfortable and you can do things to change that, but like your body shape isn't who you are. And so, you know, yeah, just really from my childhood. And then of course as I got older, and then I thought I had a handle on it, and then the competing is when it really spiked for me, where I was like, okay, I do not have a handle on how I look at myself and how I feel about myself right now.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I completely relate and wrote about that in the book too, where my mom, my parents, they never said anything to me about my body or needing to lose weight. I heard that, you know, from outside sources, but really with my mom, it was the same. It was looking at her, and she would even tell me things that were wrong with her body or how, you know, childbirth changed it from as, you know, as long as I can remember, which is really heartbreaking. And you know, I think it was a different time too for like our moms. It was a different generation where, again, that was just, you know, there weren't resources where women were having these types of conversations or people were talking about self-love.
Yeah.
You being like an advocate for self-love and doing so much, you know, your workbook and really just putting self-love like forward. I'm curious if you ever have anyone like really have a lot of resistance to that, because I've found a little bit in my journey where, you know, some women still feel like what the hell is that, or, you know, feel like it's a self-centered kind of thing, and just kind of like the different ways people can take it sometimes too.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's resistance, but what I've learned with the resistance is I think that it's coming from a place of their own insecurities. Because I know that like when I was you know, very insecure and not loving myself fully, I would look at girls who were super confident and be like, oh, they're so cocky, they just love themselves. Like, I was that girl. And so I'm like, wait a minute, no, they love themselves. That's like a beautiful thing. I don't have like a ton of resistance. I definitely have more positive feedback and encouragement from it, but the ones who have the resistance, that's just what I find is that they really just need a lot more healing, like a lot more healing to see that it's okay to love yourself. It's okay to be like, I'm the bomb. Like, look at me, like I'm amazing. And that doesn't make you conceited. I think it's so great that we are bringing self-love to the forefront, and it's being had in conversations, and it's being promoted, because more women need to see that like self-love is just this necessary, it's just a necessary part of your life. Like, it doesn't mean that, again, that you're like stuck up or anything like that. So the resistance I find is really just from people who maybe aren't ready to like fully embrace their healing journey yet. Like it's almost like we trigger them essentially.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And like I watch her videos and like her reels and stuff, you guys, you've got to, if you're not following her, you're missing out. But they're just like, I'm like, yeah. And it just like gives you that fire, but I get it. And it's like when you're not in a good place, that can be very triggering. And it made me think of actually when I was like had my fitness Facebook page, and when I was still very like every comment someone made like I took to heart completely. And I can remember one guy was like, she must really love herself, with like a selfie I posted or something. And now I look back and I'm like, that's so funny, because like why shouldn't we? Like we should. And again, like if you look in the mirror and you're like, and not even that, like more than your appearance, just knowing like, yeah, I'm awesome, and like I'm gorgeous. Like that's amazing to feel that way. And again, this whole concept that we should be ashamed, or there's so many messages we get as women where we should hide that or play small or downplay things. When someone gives us a compliment, we say like, oh, this, or I haven't washed my hair, and all of that. So I'm curious too, with talking about messaging for women. And a big theme of my book is burning the rule book, and just like all the messages you got growing up, like looking at them and then rewriting it, and burning the rule book, throwing out what didn't work for you. So in your journey, are there certain things that have come up where you feel like, growing up you used to subscribe to it, or it was kind of passed down to you, or messaging you got that now you're like, F that, and doing it a different way?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for most of us, I mean, I'm 36, I'm going to be 37 in November. So I definitely think generations matter when we talk about these things, because I think now girls who are a little bit younger they definitely with social media have it harder, and they have more resources where we didn't have, I don't feel like those resources, or like my parents didn't have the resources. So I think the things that were kind of passed down to me then, it's like, um, you know, I think now, like basically now I think it's easier to say, like, for example, you know, I can think about like a woman isn't, like you said, we weren't really taught to like love ourselves like that. It was kind of like we were supposed to be barefoot and pregnant by the time we were 20, and that was it. And now it's like, no, I'm encourage all women, like go live your 20s to the max, and then get into your 30s and settle down, and like, do all those things. So I think, I love that burn the book thing. I love the burn the rule book. That's so great. Yeah, I think there's no rules anymore. I just think the only rule is to love yourself, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And doing it your way. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So one thing I wanted to kind of dive into as well, and something I love so much about you, is even when I reached out to you, I think it's like a month, almost 2 months ago, but about doing this and getting it on the calendar, you were like, hell yeah, like let me know what I have to do. I'm there. And you've had so much success, and you're still such a champion of other women, like really truly, like your heart is so apparent that you truly love helping people, you truly love supporting other women. And I think that is something that I struggled with for a lot of my life too, again, like feeling like I was constantly competing with other women, even friendships when I was younger. It was always very like competitive, or if my friend is pretty, am I less pretty? What does that mean about me? All of that kind of weirdness that I think, again, is like kind of a cultural thing that a lot of women struggle with. So I'd love to just hear, your experience with that. And has it always been like that, or is that something that you've cultivated as well?
Definitely cultivated. When I was like younger, if I think back to like middle school, high school, I definitely wasn't the girl's girl. I had girlfriends, but I had more guy friends than girlfriends. And now looking back, I think that the girls didn't like me because like I didn't know my potential then. I've always been me. Like, kind of like proud to say, like, if I walk in a room, I'm going to make friends with everyone. I'm going to just be happy and positive and uplifting. Like, that is my energy. And I love that about myself. And it's funny, like, it's almost weird to say that, right? It's like, can we say, it's like we're complimenting ourselves, but it's true. So, then there was definitely less support from girls when I was younger. And it wasn't until later now in life when I've really aligned with like my truths and who I am that I've had the right circle of women around me. And what I want to do is I'm constantly encouraging women to grow. And like when you ask me to do this, yeah, I want to support you. Heck yes. Like, it's like that expression, like a candle doesn't lose its flame by lighting another. And I really believe that because by me shining my light on you and other women, that doesn't take away from me. That's only going to make me shine brighter. It's going to help you shine brighter. And I think that that might be something that we were taught is like, you have to always be in competition and like, who's the best and who's the prettiest or who's the most successful. And I think there's just so much room for everyone to be everything they want to be. And so like I'm a big advocate now for that whole women empowerment, even for the people who like don't align with me anymore in my life, like maybe friends I'm not friends with anymore. I don't hold like a grudge or hate in my heart. It's love. Like, I wish you the best. I hope you shine and thrive in life, because that to me is so much more beautiful than anything else. And so it's like, yeah, I'm all about the women empowerment. Like, we need it. Like, women need to stick together and like root each other on instead of tearing each other apart. We need each other. So it's like, that's what I'm always trying to do. And if I can do it, I'm doing it.
Totally. Yes. And I love that piece about the candle, like that visual. That's so good and so true and such a good way to look at it.
Yeah, like I think about like a birthday cake, like you take the candle and you're lighting one candle off another, and it
Yeah.
just, it's like, I think when people have that mindset, it's like, just light each other up. Like, keep doing it. It's a beautiful thing when more people can come together and just be, empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also would love to hear about, because again, you have had a lot of success. You're definitely like in the limelight on social media and you put it all out there. You talk about your life, you share a lot of your life, you give zero fucks. I'm like, can we, I
Make it
think,
fair.
I don't know. But yeah, like, don't give a F. And I know how sometimes that comes with people, saying negative things that I know you said, which is amazing that it's mostly positive feedback. But it's interesting because I spent the day at a retreat about women starting movements and like really, being in their power and living in their purpose. And for so many people, I think there's this fear of being seen and this fear of success sometimes and putting yourself out there, because when we put ourselves out there, yeah, we can be criticized, we can be judged, and it hurts. And so I'd love to hear your experience with that and how you've been able to overcome that and, continue to do what you do and shine so brightly.
So thank you for that. I think so. So I started out, let's just talk about like Instagram as a whole. When I started my brand, it was Ashley Marie. It was Fitness with Ashley. And I definitely had a lot of negativity there. Like, there was always comments. Like, if I could tell you how many times someone told me I didn't have boobs, and I'm like, hello, like, I know, like, who cares? Like, they're there, they're small. Or like, your nose is too big, or, again, everything like, oh, you're not that pretty. You're this, you're that. Like, just, and that used to really get to me. And that point in my life was when I wasn't as strong as I am now. So when I transitioned over and I created this lifestyle brand for myself, it really was because I wanted to be seen, but I wanted to be seen by women. I wanted women to be able to relate to me. And I used to get frustrated on like my fitness platform. I'd be like, how come these girls aren't understanding like what I'm putting out there? Why aren't they reading my captions? Like, why is the women empowerment not happening here? And it wasn't happening because I wasn't in the right place yet to like put that out and receive it. It was almost like the imposter syndrome when I was on that page. And so coming over to my lifestyle page, I allow myself to be seen, and I have really good boundaries. So I share a lot and I allow myself to be vulnerable, but I'm also really good at like setting boundaries, not sharing things that I don't feel need to be like out there, but allowing myself to be seen because I'm so confident in who I am, and that I know that anyone's judgment of me or opinion of me, if it's negative, it doesn't matter, because it's a projection of their own insecurities, or it's something they're actually struggling with. It's not my truth. And I've always like prided myself on being authentic, being real, and remaining like humble and relatable. Like I never want someone to not be able to relate to me or feel like I'm not a real human. Like I'm always reminding people like I'm a human too. But I think how I've been able to like get through it is the boundaries. Like anytime someone says anything negative now, they're blocked. And people think that's crazy. Like, you block people? I'm like, yeah. Because like, if you're going to be a cyberbully, go comment something that's unnecessary on someone's page that you don't even know. I don't want you to have access to it. So like, I don't entertain. And that's something I had to learn too. Like, I'm a Scorpio, and let me tell you something. I can really light a fire, right? Like I could really go combative with somebody, but I always say like, for what? Why would I do that? So the old me used to do that, or feel like I had to explain myself or justify myself. And this me is like, you're not even worth my time. Yeah. You're not worth my energy. So I'm like really big on blocking, deleting and blocking. And just, I've always been like a no bullshit. Like if I always tell people like, if you're here and you're going to be dramatic or you're going to write nasty things, like you're just going to get blocked, like don't bring it. And for the most part, people don't. I feel like people truly just respect me for like who I am and the boundaries that I've like created. And again, like I think because I have that thicker skin now, because I know how much I love myself, and like everything that I've done to get here, I can't let somebody who doesn't even know me try to tear me down.
Yes, so much yes. And like that energy also sets the tone. And, it really does attract. And so it's interesting with both of us too, like when we were in a different place, attracting a lot more of that. And I feel the same way. And the more that I've really like switched over my focus and, focus on serving women, it's such a different experience.
Yeah.
For one, it's so funny that you're like, I'm a Scorpio, because when you said November, I was already like, is she a Scorpio or a Sagittarius? I have to know. And I'm with you on the block thing. And it's funny because I've kind of always felt that way, but every once in a while, like the right comment will just get, hit the right nerve. And I had that experience in April, and I ended up like my fingernails, you could hear them typing on my little cell phone. And like one of my friends commented too and got involved and went back and forth with this woman. And then she ended up saying like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Like, kind of like we went through this whole thing, and she basically was like, you're right, and I attacked you. I felt like shit for like 2 days after that. It just was so draining. And I was like, why did I have to be right? Like, why did I have to tell this stranger on the internet, like, I'm a good person and you're wrong? And like, you know what I mean? I was like, never again. Like, that was my lesson. Because, and I think again, like if you entertain it, again, then other people jump on and they comment too, which is really sweet and kind that they like have your back. But it really attracts more of that kind of energy, that like combative, nasty energy that we just like don't want. So totally, I think that's the best advice. Like block, delete. It's your space. And so, yeah, like, setting the tone, setting those boundaries. And I think that's such.
I mean, I agree. Like, I've been there. Trust me. I always think when something happens now, like especially for both of us, where we're at with like our healing journeys and everything like that, I think that when we do get like triggered a little bit, it's almost like, for me, because I believe in God, it's almost like God's like, hey, I'm just gonna test you real quick. Let me see if you really are feeling how you say you're feeling. Are you really sound in who you are? Do you really believe the things that you're preaching? Like, that's how I look at it. I'm like, oh wait, let me back it up. Let me back it up real quick. Because I'm the same way. Like, it's almost like you want to be right, or you want to like prove them wrong. Like, what you're saying is not right. You hurt me. And sometimes I'm just like, it's just better off to say nothing, or to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to pray for you, sister. I'm going to pray for you that you find your healing. Because if you think that this is like the way to you know, come at someone you don't even know, it's like you need a lot of prayer.
Yes, I totally agree. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, always those little tests.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned with your healing journey, and we kind of talked about you stepping away from competing and, you know, focusing more on your love of fitness, but in a really like healthy, balanced, enjoy your life kind of approach. So I'd love to hear what that looked like. And, you know, with recognizing after that show that your, you know, your body image, body dysmorphia maybe wasn't in the most solid place. Like, what has it looked like to go from that Ashley that I met so many years ago, I don't even know how many, to,
I know. When is it?
yeah,
I think it's
to
been
be,
like 10 years.
I think, yeah, that sounds about right.
That's
Um,
crazy.
I know. So what did that look like? You know, take us on that journey, things that you did, or what it was like for you to get to this place where you are super confident, loving yourself, and in a really healthy place.
Yeah, so I have to say, first and foremost, for anyone that's watching us right now or listening to us, that the healing journey never ends. It never ends. I think that you get stronger, right? We get better at things, but it's like a constant working effort. You have to constantly be pouring into yourself and surrounding yourself with things that lift you higher and kind of like always working on it. You know, when I walked away from competing and I knew that I was in a low, it didn't happen overnight, because from there it went to finding myself in relationships that were unhealthy. You know, really struggling to just get where I wanted to be in life. I kind of felt like I was like at a standstill. These unhealthy relationships and even unhealthy friendships. And it was hard. And I don't think it was until I truly, like, kind of in a sense hit rock bottom, where I was like, okay, something's got to give, something's got to change, you know? And some people are like, well, how does that stem from body image? And it's like, well, if you don't love your body and you don't love yourself, that's the energy that you're putting out and that you attract. So now you're attracting people who don't value you, right? They don't value your worth, and you're surrounding yourself with that kind of energy, and you're not doing things to like work on your personal growth or even your professional growth. Like, my business wasn't that great at that time. I was just really struggling. So I kind of like literally, you know, I would say over the last 7, 8 years now, so it seems like a long time, but let's say 7 years solid, I really poured into myself and this healing journey of mine. And like I said, when I hit that rock bottom, I was in a really unhealthy relationship, like no money in my bank account, struggling. My business was not booming, and I just kind of felt lost. I really did. And for me, I had to reconnect with my faith. That was number one. I always do that whenever I feel lost. I reconnected with my faith, and I kind of just had to like start all over. It's like started practicing the affirmations, reading things, listening to things that were encouraging, putting myself around and in places of people, like women with good self-love, good body image, stepping away from the restricted diet life. Like, no more. I was like, okay, if I want the tacos, I'm eating the tacos. If I want this burger, I'm eating this burger, and I'm not going to punish myself for it by going to the gym for 2 hours and running on the treadmill because I ate something, you know. That was like my life. So I had to like do all these things. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's like small changes. Like maybe it's listening, maybe it's it was reading a book for me, or maybe it was listening to a certain podcast, or, well, you know, one of my very best friends, like, she actually is the one who like taught me affirmations. Like, I didn't even really know what they were, you know? And so I was like, okay, so she taught me them and I applied them to my life. And I hate to say I fake it till I make it, but it's almost like you fake it till you make it. Like, you got to start like pouring that info into yourself and downloading it. And the next thing you know, it's like you're living it, because it becomes like, it just becomes who you are. It's like, if you always listen to negativity, or you're always, you know, around people who are miserable, that's who you're going to learn to be. So I poured myself into the positive and all of the encouragement, and that's what I learned to become. And I would say like a big shift really in my healing journey was finding the right healthy relationship. Starting this lifestyle page truly transformed me, because it showed me that I had so much more to give than I was giving. And then becoming a mom, that was something I never thought I would do. I didn't ever want to be a mom. And then one day I was like, I think I want to be a mom, and then having my daughter completely changed my life because I was like, oh, I like it definitely was like the tipping on the scale for me because now I was like, I got to show up for her. I want to be who I want her to be. I want to be my best version of myself. And so literally every day I journal, I read my Jesus calling, I do the podcast, I record my podcast. Like, I'm mentoring girls, not just with business but with life. And I think by continuing to just keep pouring and pouring and pouring, I've really been able to develop this healing journey that never ends. Like, it's going to be this continual thing. So hopefully that was like answered the question. I feel like sometimes I like ramble and go in different directions, but yeah, I would say it took a lot of time and patience, and it was definitely worth it, to get here.
Oh my gosh, so good. And so many things like totally resonate with me. It's interesting too, like 7 years is like where my pivot started as well. And so much of my life changed. I love when you said like the fake it till you make it, because that kind of like doesn't have a great ring to it, but it is. It's like, really surrounding yourself with, and if, like you said, if you're around negativity all the time, you're going to absorb that and you're going to kind of be that. So, and for me, really like one affirmation around food in my body really started to change my life because we can rewire our brains and we can change our programming. And so, again, just like with how we're nourishing our bodies physically, it's like nourishing our mind, nourishing our brain with good stuff that we want to believe, and even if you're not there yet, like starting to inch toward that is so important. Like, we do have so much more power than most of us realize. So yeah,
Yeah.
everything was so amazing. And I was also going to ask about your daily routines. So you kind of got into it, but do you have like a specific morning routine, all that? Yeah, you're like
Oh, yeah.
totally.
I'm like a routine girl, but I tell people, I'm like, you have to have a routine. You
Mhm.
gotta have you have to have a system for yourself. Like, I'm from my social media, everyone knows like my bed it's literally the first thing I do. And that was a huge part of the change for me. I never made my bed every day. It was chaos. I mean, if you are in a mess, it makes your life feel like a mess. And it gives me anxiety, even just thinking about my bed not being made. Like, it's just crazy. But I get up, I turn off the alarm. I do not pick up my phone and scroll. If my husband's not home because he's already gone for the day, I do text him like, good morning, I love you, hope you have a great day. I make my bed and then I look at it because it's like beautiful, take a picture of it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to share that with everyone later for motivation. But then I go right to, I get my water and my coffee. I have my Jesus calling, and from there, I journal my thoughts from the reading that I do for the day. And then I regular journal. I do use my own workbook, which it sounds funny, but I do. Like I said, it never ends. You got to constantly do the work. So I do my own workbook and then journaling. And I usually will listen to some kind of a motivational speech. I'm not really like a full blown podcast girl where I don't have a full hour to listen to some things sometimes. So I look for the podcasts that are more like 20 minutes, 30 minutes. If, something I can listen to that's going to like fill my brain with some positivity. And usually it's like a 5 minute like motivational speech. Like, I'll Google like best speeches and it's like The Rock or something. He's like talking about life and got me all amped up. And so I do that every morning. And I try to stay away. I don't answer emails, texts, or scroll on social media for a solid hour. I've really been trying to push it to 2 hours because I think we're all addicted. We really are. It's true. Even myself, like, I find myself sometimes I'm like, what am I even looking at anymore? Like, what am I even scrolling for? So this is something that I've implemented. I was at a leadership retreat back in June, and that was something that was taught to me. And ever since I've made that change, it's like so much better. And I also read. I forgot to mention that too. So I read like a self-help or personal growth or business growth development book, something that's going to just help me expand my knowledge and my learning, really. So do all that before I like start the day. And then it's the gym, right? Then it comes into the body and the overall wellness that way. So yeah, then it's the gym and then whatever I have lined up for work for the day or leisure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So good. I love it. Yeah. And it is you're like, we're all addicted. I'm like, yeah, I really saw that on Monday. Like, how many times did you try to open the app and you're like, oh, that's right. It was kind of refreshing for a few hours.
I know. It was refreshing and also like, wait a second. Is it coming back? Did I lose all my stuff?
Alarming.
Yeah.
But yeah, such good advice. And I try to do the same lately. I feel like I've been getting away from being really dedicated to doing those things before I start responding. Like it's so tempting and I'll find myself in like my email inbox or whatever. And it really makes such a difference when you are really intentional and like start the day with that energy versus diving in and, just responding to everything. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I point out you have a super successful business. You're doing a lot of things. You're a mom, and still making time for that, I think is really beautiful because I know a lot of people, that's a huge like barrier is like I don't have the time for this stuff or so kind of on that note and then just in general, like what advice would you give to a woman who's watching this today and maybe they're like, I'm so far from this. Like I am not loving myself. I'm, maybe not making time for myself or just like, really again, it feels very, very far away. What would you share with her?
I would share to give yourself grace and to be patient and to not try to do everything all at once. So, if getting up in the morning, so for example, my daughter's awake by sometimes 7:30, but usually 8 is when she wakes up. So I set my alarm for 6 or 6:30 so that I'm up before her so I can get some things done. I do not love waking up at 6 or 6:30. Like I'd love to sleep till 8. But I found that if I sleep till 8, there's no me time. And me time is so important. So getting up early, it is a habit. It'll become part of your routine and that self-discipline, but it's like it's worth it because you're worth it. You're worth that time for yourself. So it's like maybe try waking up 30 minutes if you want first, not an hour, not an hour and a half. Try giving yourself some alone time, some just like total you time, especially speaking from motherhood. Like we pour all day into our children that who's pouring into our cup? We have to be responsible for our own cup and what that means and what we need to refill it with. So like just be patient and start with like this like a small change. Like maybe you start by making your bed or maybe you start by okay, I'm not going to look at my phone for 10 minutes today. And then once you've done that for a couple days in a row, try for 20 minutes, then try for 30, and then realize that not everybody's perfect. Like there's definitely days that like I've woken up and I'm looking at my phone. I'm like, wait, what am I doing? This isn't my routine. Like I've done that. Like I'm not perfect and nobody is. And I think it's important to realize that it's like, don't compare where you're at right now to anybody else's story or journey. Just use it as inspiration and motivation to really say yes to your healing journey. I think it always starts with saying yes, like I'm worth it. And today, this is what I'm going to do for myself, whatever that means, even if it's not that you don't want to read a personal growth book, maybe you want to read the romance novel and you want to read 5 minutes of it to escape. Go do it. Like, do that for yourself. Do the things that are going to benefit your health, your overall well-being. A lot of people are like, they don't want to do all the things I'm doing, and that's fine. You don't have to. But just, take and pull from the things that feel right for you. And again, give yourself grace because, life is hard and not every day goes to plan. Like mom or not, like, because there's, whether you're a mother or not, just a person, like every day life can be this uncertain obstacle that comes your way, and you have to be okay with being flexible. Like, all right, so you know what? Today I didn't get X, Y, and Z done, and I got this done though. I did this and I accomplished that. So it's like, don't overlook the small accomplishments because you feel like they weren't big. Like all the small, I think, are more important than the big accomplishments that we do.
Yes, so good, so true. Yeah, and it really is. It's like it's those small wins. It's never like these massive changes that happen overnight. It doesn't happen that way. It's all the little stuff that really adds up. And then you look back, and that's where you and I can sit here and be like, damn, that was a long time ago, and we've come a really long way.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. I mean, think about that. Like think about us saying that like 7 years ago, the thing is start. And I tell people this is like what I say all the time, like life is short and it's never too late to start. Like start today, because you don't want to look back 5 years from now and say, I wish I started. Like just start now, and life will unfold, and it'll be beautiful when you look back and say, I'm glad I started, because now look where I am.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Ashley. Yeah, you just shared so many amazing tips, so much value. And again, I just love your heart, your energy. Yeah, you're just so beautiful inside and out.
Thank
Appreciate
you. I
and
appreciate you. This was so great.
yes, and let everyone know. I mean, first off, you definitely have to go follow her. Again, if you're not, you're missing out. Um, but also, I just wanted to pop in and share where else they can find you. And with, is the podcast out yet, or where they can
Yeah.
plug it?
Yeah, so I launched the podcast last week. I have 4 episodes out. You can find it on Spotify or on Anchor, because that's what I'm using for the podcast right now. It's like it's how you can create your own. I do share it on my stories, and I have the link in my bio on my Instagram, which is at Lifestyle by Ashley. So the podcast is out. My book is on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, the workbook for self-love. So if you're saying to yourself like, okay, I want to start my self-love journey, it's a really great way to start diving into, and I think learning more about like who you are, maybe where you're struggling, and how you can start healing. And then mostly it's just everything's on my lifestyle page, really. And then, yeah, I've got like a million links in bio for everything.
Yes, yeah. And the workbook too, I love that because I love to journal. I've always like, I feel like when I put pen to paper, it's really like therapeutic and you can get stuff out. But I find a lot of women I work with, they'll be like, I don't know what to write. Like, I bought the journal, so now what? So I love the workbook as well because, it gives you the prompts, it gives you stuff to dig into. So it's really helpful to give you that little light structure, to really serve you in this journey. So
Yeah. I think it's like the perfect, I'm like, do mine's in here, but it's like, I feel like it's the perfect pairing with even your book, because it's like, so they're going to learn and hear about your journey and what's working and your teaching. And then they can even just transition that when they're journaling, like if they go, it's beautiful. Like, it's so funny. Like, so I say, like, I think life always comes full circle. And I just remember meeting you for the first time and like, just like, I don't know what the word is, like fawning over you. I was like, oh God, I love her so much. She's so beautiful. She's so in shape. Like, I want to be just like her. Like, that's literally, I just remember that, like meeting you, like, oh, I just met her. Like, she's at my show. Like, this is crazy. Like, it was like, I was starstruck. And then it's like, here we are. We didn't even know that we were on this same healing journey. Like, we had no idea. I would have never known had I not obviously continued to follow you, I would have never known that you struggled with the same things that I struggled with. And I think that's something too that people could take away from this is like, never judge a book by its cover, because you never know someone's story. You don't. And we all have our own struggles, that we're overcoming, and we're all writing our own stories, and each and every one is beautiful. And it's just, you got to honor everybody's journey.
yeah. Wow. So happy you shared that. And I'm like mind blown because it feels like a different life to me, and it was like the worst time in my life. And it's crazy too when I hear women share that and, like where I was and kind of the image I had created was so different from what I was actually experiencing on the inside. And I've never been more lost or more insecure. So it's, it's wild. And like you said, not judging a book by its cover. And I think that's a really important reminder too in today's world with, social media and everything we see, like all media really when we're consuming it. And like, if we're feeling like we're not good enough, or I wish I was this person, or there's so much better, it's like, again, well, we don't really know the whole picture, so
Yeah.
no one, I mean, some people, thankfully now, I think it is cool that people are posting more of the real journey and like getting more vocal about that stuff. But again, a lot of times we don't have the full picture and the behind the scenes and like the messiness. So it's an important reminder, to keep that in mind and not compare yourself to what you're seeing on the internet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Well, I love that. And again, I love everything you're doing. So thank you so much for everything you shared today. And definitely, you guys go check out her workbook. It's amazing. I wish we had it because it's so cute too. I'll
I
post it.
know. I'm like, I think it's here. Hold on. I mean, you would think I have 100. I think the one that's in here is the one that my daughter drew on, which is hysterical.
Oh,
So
workbook.
my daughter did her own artwork on my face. But this is the workbook. I think my app paused for a second. But yeah, that's it. With my daughter's doodle, which could totally be like her autograph one day. So maybe I should hold on to this.
She's like, it's mine now.
And it's funny because I just opened up because I was going to show a page, and there it is, me making my bed.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I love it. I love that. So, yeah. Check out her stories, podcast, her workbook. Thank you so much, Ashli. This was amazing. And thank you guys all for tuning in. And we'll see you very soon.
Yes, thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.
Bye.